we opened up a pawn shop. So it's all I've ever done. I enjoy doing it. So I mean, there's just a lot of things going on there.
Tell me do something for God and country and go back to work.
That's a good one right there.
I'm gonna kick your butt, chum.
This guy is the most cunning con artist of our time. That blunt accusation stunned the entire courtroom when a witness boldly pointed the finger at Rick Harrison during his latest trial. Viewers of the hit reality show Pawn Stars around the world were in disbelief upon hearing that Rick, known for his sharp negotiating skills and deep knowledge of antiques, had been sentenced to life in prison. What happened to the man who always seemed to have the upper hand in every deal? Could there be a dark secret hiding behind that calm and intelligent exterior? His once seemingly unshakable TV career suddenly took a dangerous and unpredictable turn. Rumors about his involvement in scams and illegal antique trading spread like wildfire. Watch this video to uncover the full journey of the Pawn Stars celebrity, from the peak of fame to behind bars. 1. Rick Harrison, from pawn shop owner to Pawn Stars icon. Richard Kevin Harrison, better known to fans as Rick Harrison from the hit show Pawn Stars, wasn't just a regular face on TV. He also attracted media attention for his colorful personal life. The Harrison family's gold and silver pawn shop, located at 713 S Las Vegas Blood, has served as the main filming location for the show since July 2009. Who would have guessed that a simple pawn shop could become one of the History Channel's most watched programs, offering a fascinating and sometimes bizarre glimpse into the world of pawnbroking? Born on March 22, 1965 in Lexington, North Carolina, Rick is a well-known businessman and a familiar figure to American TV audiences. At the age of 2, his family relocated to San Diego, California, where he spent most of his childhood. Few people know that Rick began suffering from epilepsy at age 8, which forced him to spend a lot of time reading books. This experience helped him develop an impressive knowledge of history, a key factor in his later success. But could the hardships of his past be connected to his current legal troubles? Rick's early years were far from easy. His epilepsy led to frequent absences from school, and he eventually dropped out in the middle of his sophomore year. However, falling behind in formal education didn't stop him from pursuing knowledge or chasing success. On the contrary, Rick threw himself into self-education, devouring books on a wide range of subjects, especially history and business. As a result, he built a vast pool of knowledge, something viewers have clearly seen in his performances on Pawn Stars. So what could have dragged such a driven, knowledge-loving man into legal ruin? As a teenager, Rick worked with his father on various business ventures. It was during this time that he developed a sharp eye for items, as well as the ability to assess value and authenticity, a vital skill in his future career. At 17, Rick's girlfriend became pregnant, and the couple decided to marry. They had 2 sons, Corey and Adam, before divorcing after 8 years. In 1981, the family moved to Las Vegas, where Rick's father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, opened a store focused on coins and precious metals. Could the ups and downs of his personal life have played a role in shaping the decisions Rick would later make? What started as a small coin shop eventually grew, and by 1989, it had transformed into the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop, later the central location of Pawn Stars. The shift from coins to pawnbroking was a strategic decision, as the Harrison family recognized greater profit potential in that field. The early years were tough, with Rick and his father working tirelessly to build a solid reputation in Las Vegas. Rick often had to deal with difficult customers and potentially risky situations. But what happened next? Why would someone as successful and influential as Rick Harrison face a life sentence? Stay tuned to uncover the developments behind this mystery. But did Rick stop at simply running a thriving pawn shop? Not at all. In the mind of this ambitious man emerged an unusual idea: turning the daily transactions at his store into an engaging reality TV show. Could those challenges have contributed to the wrong turns he would take later on? In the early 2000s, Rick rose to prominence in Las Vegas thanks to his extensive knowledge of collectibles and antiques with historical value. His pawn shop gradually became known as a place that housed rare items, attracting not only locals, but also visitors from out of town. Recognizing the entertainment potential his shop offered, did Rick anticipate that this move would change not only his own life but also that of his family? Soon after, the show Pawn Stars officially aired, taking viewers behind the scenes with Rick, his son Corey Big Hoss Harrison, his father Richard the Old Man Harrison, and his close friend Austin Chumley Russell in their daily routines at the gold and silver pawn shop. The show showcased how they authenticated, negotiated, and dealt with antiques and unbelievably rare items. What drove Rick to pursue this plan with such determination? Perhaps it was because he saw both the educational and entertainment value in each item and the historical story behind it. After a long period of persistently approaching various networks and facing constant rejection, Rick's efforts finally paid off. In 2009, he signed a contract with the History Channel, marking a new chapter in his career. One of the things that set Pawn Stars apart from other shows was its educational value, something Rick always emphasized. Each episode offered fascinating insights into the history tied to the items brought in, and Rick frequently shared detailed information to help viewers understand more, demonstrating his impressive expertise. Thanks to Rick's leadership, the shop grew steadily, attracting tourists from all over. Many came just to meet the cast members or in hopes of appearing in an episode. The show quickly made a huge impact, turning Rick from a regular pawn shop owner into a well-known figure with a massive fan base. His straightforward manner, clear communication, and deep knowledge of antiques helped him win over viewers. His signature line, "The best I can do is," became a recognizable phrase every time he sat down to negotiate with someone selling a prized item. His stories of overcoming adversity inspired the public, while his down-to-earth business advice earned him respect from people both inside and outside the television industry. So, what exactly made Rick Harrison a standout figure in the world of antiques and collectibles? Throughout his career, he showed a remarkable ability to recognize the true value of items that others might easily overlook. Business boomed, and Rick capitalized on his fame by writing books, attending fan events, and launching the highly successful restaurant Rick's Rollin' Smoke BBQ and Tavern. Riding the wave of Pawn Stars' popularity, Rick reached a whole new level, appearing on television shows, being interviewed in magazines, and becoming a speaker at corporate events. Could this be a sign of a wise businessman who understands his strengths and limitations? He was frequently seen buying and reselling items, with many highly successful deals and a few that didn't go as planned. Maybe his expertise in watches, weaponry, and American historical artifacts brought him some impressive profits. One of Rick's most well-known transactions was a 2001 Super Bowl ring from the New England Patriots, which he bought for $2,600 and later discovered to be worth much more. Was this talent something he was born with, or the result of relentless learning and experience? Perhaps it was his keen eye and broad knowledge that helped him succeed episode after episode on Pawn Stars. Viewers of the show have seen Rick appraise a wide range of items, from rare historical documents to vintage cars, from ancient artifacts to modern collectibles. Despite his vast knowledge, Rick often brought in experts when faced with items outside his specialty. What were those hardships, and how did they affect his life? Was that just a lucky break, or the result of sharp judgment and knowledge of rare sports memorabilia? Another notable example was a collection of Spanish gold doubloons recovered from a sunken ship from 1715, a clear reflection of Rick's passion for both history and precious metals. But is that all there is to Rick Harrison? Because behind the success and the bright moments, Rick Harrison also faced a deep and painful personal tragedy. Behind the stage lights and the seemingly cheerful conversations on television lies Rick Harrison's personal life, marked by many upheavals and losses. His life isn't just about valuable antiques or major deals. It's also filled with sorrow, separation, and unforgettable pain. Rick has been through 3 failed marriages, and each breakup likely left deep emotional scars. 2. Tragedies and heartbreaks. Though this relationship brought him 2 sons, Corey and Adam, its abrupt end forced Rick to find a way to balance being a father with chasing his career ambitions. The experience made him more cautious in love and strengthened his resolve to build a stable path to provide for his children. At the time, his father, Richard, stood by him, offering emotional support and helping him in business. But that wasn't the end of his struggles. It's not hard to imagine the sense of emptiness and hurt he experienced when relationships that once felt solid eventually fell apart. Did each of those separations chip away at his faith in love and hope for a lasting family? Rick's first marriage to Kim Harrison began in 1982, but lasted only a short 3 years. It was his first encounter with the collapse of a family. After the split, he became more reserved about his private life and poured all his energy into running the pawn shop and the Pawn Stars show. During that time, his father continued to be a vital support, working by his side and helping him cope with the loss so he could carry on his responsibilities to the family. In 2013, Rick remarried, this time to Deanna Burdett, hoping to find happiness again after 2 failed marriages. Rick entered into a second marriage with Tracy Harrison in 1986, which lasted 25 years until 2011, when it also ended in divorce. This was a major blow, as the long time they had spent together had given him a sense of stability, especially since they shared a son named Jake. When that relationship ended, Rick had to face disappointment and self-doubt about his ability to hold a family together. To Rick, his father was more than just a close colleague on Pawn Stars. He was a mentor and a guiding figure both professionally and personally. The old man was a cornerstone of the gold and silver pawn shop, where Rick learned patience, negotiation skills, and the value of family. Losing him left Rick in a deep emotional void, forcing him to face loneliness and take on the heavy responsibility of preserving the legacy they had built together. However, by 2021, that marriage also ended, marking the 3rd time he had to confront the pain of divorce. These repeated failures gradually eroded his belief in love, causing him to retreat into himself and avoid discussing personal matters in public. However, the losses in Rick's life were not limited to broken relationships. One of the most devastating moments for him was the passing of his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison Jr., on June 25, 2018. His father, Richard, had always been his greatest source of motivation, leaving Rick with invaluable lessons about resilience and duty, helping him stay grounded as he continued to lead Pawn Stars and the family business. One might have thought the pain had reached its peak, but the most heartbreaking tragedy in Rick's life was the death of his son, Adam. Losing a child, especially to a drug overdose, is a wound that nothing can truly heal. After this tragedy, Rick slowed down, but also grew tougher, determined to protect the shop's reputation and the show. More than that, Rick once shared that he battled depression, especially after his father's death in 2018. That loss shook him to his core and made the pressures of work feel heavier than ever before. Yet, the tragedy also forged greater strength in him, a man who constantly pushed through adversity. Rick didn't hesitate to admit that Adam began using drugs when he was about 20 years old. He had tried sending his son to rehab centers, hoping Adam could turn his life around. But the cycle of addiction kept dragging Adam down, adding to the pain in Rick's heart. In a deeply emotional moment, Rick opened up about the guilt and the haunting what-if questions that never leave him. Perhaps this loss will remain a permanent scar on his heart. In a moving interview, the creator of Pawn Stars recounted the heartbreaking loss of his 39-year-old son. "I think about him every day," Rick said with a heavy voice. In his mind, he sees Adam alongside the struggles he endured in life. These painful words of self-reflection reveal the deep sorrow weighing on his heart. The tragedy struck when Adam accidentally took fentanyl, a dangerous synthetic drug that ultimately cost him his life. Who could possibly imagine the unbearable pain of a father losing the child he loved with all his heart? Adam Harrison was found unresponsive at a guest house in Las Vegas, where he had been living, and was later pronounced dead. Was there something Rick missed, or should he have made different decisions that might have prevented such a tragic outcome? Rick couldn't stop blaming himself, constantly wondering if there was something he could have done differently. "I thought I did everything right, but your mind just keeps going. What if I had done this? What if I had done that?" You've got hundreds of thoughts running through your head. Could Adam's death be a painful wake-up call for society about the seriousness of this epidemic? In a conversation with Graham Benzinger, Rick Harrison spoke bitterly, saying that when you're the parent of a child struggling with addiction, you try to be tough on them, but you never expect an overdose to actually happen. His heart-wrenching statement captures the helplessness and agony felt by parents of children battling addiction. Police investigations concluded that the cause of death was an overdose of fentanyl and methamphetamine. The coroner's office confirmed it was a tragic accident. Prior to the incident, Rick Harrison had publicly spoken out about the ongoing fentanyl crisis sweeping across the United States, urging people to be more aware of how deadly the substance is. 3. Dark secrets, fraud, tax evasion, and selling fake antiquities. Even though he had done everything within his power, Rick never imagined that the worst kind of tragedy would one day hit his family. Perhaps this is a wound no words could ever fully describe. Yet, the heartbreak didn't end there. Another storm rolled in when Rick Harrison became entangled in a major lawsuit, which ultimately resulted in a life sentence. So, what exactly led to Rick Harrison being labeled the greatest con artist of the century? Jeffries claimed he had purchased a diamond ring from the store, only to later find out that it had been reported stolen and was confiscated by police. He demanded a full refund plus additional compensation, totaling nearly $40,000. Rick denied the accusations, asserting that the shop always followed the law, including checking item information with the authorities before completing any transactions. Unfortunately, alongside his achievements, Rick has also faced numerous troubles, most of which stemmed from his own decisions. In 2022, Rick Harrison became entangled in several legal disputes related to the gold and silver pawn shop. One notable case occurred in 2012 when Wayne F. Jeffries filed a lawsuit against Rick and the shop for selling him a stolen piece of jewelry. What really happened? At first, the public was completely in the dark, leading to a flood of online rumors. Was a dark secret finally coming to light? The incident stunned both fans and people who knew Rick personally. A joint task force of FBI agents, investigators, and IRS officials from the Cultural Heritage Protection Unit simultaneously searched Rick's residence and the iconic gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas. He argued that if police databases weren't updated, there was no way for the store to know the item was stolen. After the trial, the court found Rick not guilty and confirmed that the gold and silver pawn shop had not knowingly violated any laws. Jeffries received no compensation, and the case was closed without Rick suffering significant financial loss. However, tensions escalated in 2023 when Rick's legal troubles continued, culminating in a surprise federal raid at his Las Vegas home. During the search, the FBI seized numerous key items, including computers, accounting records, and a large amount of inventory from the storage area, suspecting they were connected to stolen artifacts from museums and private collectors. Among the confiscated items were many pieces experts identified as belonging to museums and private collections, including a set of Mayan artifacts believed to have been stolen from a renowned museum in Mexico. When law enforcement officers suddenly showed up at the shop, the event immediately attracted attention. All staff and customers present were detained for questioning. Employees claimed they were completely unaware of Rick's shady dealings, and the raid left them shocked. According to inside sources from the IRS, there is evidence suggesting Rick falsified his actual income and concealed earnings from the sale of antiquities and other transactions by routing them through intermediaries. He was accused of evading taxes amounting to millions of dollars. The investigation began when the IRS flagged suspicious activity in the gold and silver pawn shop's financial records. Documents uncovered during the raid indicated these artifacts had passed through several unidentified middlemen. Additionally, at Rick's home, authorities discovered a famous 18th century painting that had once belonged to a museum in Paris, but vanished during a 2003 theft. Agents also found various documents, contracts, and transaction records pointing to the illegal trade of antiquities, including several ancient statues that had disappeared from private collections. The ongoing investigation continues to uncover a range of serious offenses Rick Harrison is accused of, from fraud and tax evasion to deliberately trading stolen antiquities through middlemen. The accusations claim Rick was directly involved in buying and selling items of illegal origin from museums and private collections. The scandal severely damaged Rick's reputation, causing fans and investors alike to question his ethics and the transparency of how he ran the pawn shop. Financial experts noted that the store had a series of large, undocumented transactions, seemingly funneled through shell companies or hidden accounts to avoid taxes. There were also allegations that Rick had engaged in unauthorized deals with foreign partners and failed to declare income from international transactions. IRS investigators reported that many contracts were disguised as service fees or fake discounts with the intent to reduce taxable income. According to David's account, he visited Rick Harrison's pawn shop around the end of 2020 with the intention of selling an extremely rare antique, a bronze mirror from the Qing dynasty, estimated to be over 3 centuries old. The item was exceptionally rare and highly valuable, having been passed down through generations in his family. A key witness in the case involving Rick Harrison is David Green, a well-known antiquities collector with a strong reputation in the antiques community. David once had an unpleasant encounter with Rick, which, according to him, led him to suspect the legality of some of the deals he had previously conducted at the gold and silver pawn shop. Rick always came across as passionate and well-informed about artifacts, which gave me a sense of trust when I made the decision to sell the mirror to his store, David said in his statement. However, after the item was delivered, and Rick had paid him what seemed to be a fair price, David began to notice a few unusual things. When he arrived at Rick's shop, David believed he was dealing with someone who was passionate about antiques, someone knowledgeable and respectful of the historical value of items like the bronze mirror he owned. At the time, I thought I was simply doing business with a collector, someone who truly understood antiques and could help me find the right buyer for this item. Several industry contacts told him that the mirror might have been traded through questionable channels, or could have even been stolen from a private collection before ending up in Rick Harrison's hands. From that point on, I started to question whether some of the items in Rick's store might not have clear origins, David said in his testimony. David Green stated that this incident made him start questioning the transactions he had previously made at the gold and silver pawn shop. In the following weeks, he spoke with several people in the antique collecting community and discovered that his bronze mirror had shown up in a major auction held at a well-known museum in New York. What caught his attention was that the mirror had been sold for a very high price, yet there was no clear information about its origin. David then continued to investigate and reached out to a few experts in the field. Shortly after an unannounced inspection, the History Channel announced a halt to the production of Pawn Stars. Could this mark the end of Rick's television career? His attorney, David Marshall, a well-known lawyer in Las Vegas, reassured the public that Rick had always run his business carefully and in full compliance with the law. Not long after the raid, Rick was taken into custody but released the next day and ordered to appear in court a few days later. Although he had no reason to believe there was anything suspicious about the mirror when he sold it, learning that it had been resold without any clear documentation made him feel deceived, and he began to suspect that other items in the shop might also have questionable histories. Was Rick really involved in such suspicious activities? The investigation appeared to have been triggered by financial transactions flagged by institutions and complaints from former business partners. However, as the case developed, more and more incriminating evidence surfaced, and testimony from former associates further undermined his position. The prosecution presented encrypted financial records, suspicious text messages, and testimonies from ex-employees, individuals who claimed Rick had instructed them to alter documentation for high-value items. They also offered proof that he had opened overseas accounts to conceal profits from certain lucrative deals. Could it be that behind the image of a straightforward businessman lies a very different person? Rick's attorney, David Marshall, once again emphasized that Rick completely denied all the accusations and was prepared to fight in court. But would his denial hold up against the evidence presented by the investigators? The legal battle dragged on for nearly a year, during which Rick consistently maintained his innocence. Do these messages reveal a sophisticated scheme designed to evade legal oversight? One piece of evidence considered particularly damning was a series of text messages between Rick and an unidentified supplier, in which they discussed how to erase the history of an 18th century document believed to have been stolen from a university. Could this be the irrefutable proof that Rick was involved in illegal antique trafficking? In another exchange, Rick allegedly discussed structuring a sale in a way that would avoid triggering cash transaction reporting requirements. The courtroom fell into a suffocating silence, as if every sound had been cut off the moment the judge prepared to announce the verdict. All eyes turned toward Rick Harrison, who had tried to remain composed throughout the trial, though the tension in his eyes was unmistakable. Sitting a few rows back, his son Corey looked visibly shocked, his pale face revealing a mix of fear and disbelief. Chumley, Rick's longtime companion, trusted friend, and also his protege, couldn't hide his emotions. For the final life sentence. The defendant, due to his involvement in the trafficking of stolen antiques and serious financial fraud, is hereby sentenced to life imprisonment, the judge declared, deepening the solemn atmosphere. The sentence came as a shock not only to Rick but also to many in the legal community. He buried his head in his hands, his eyes filled with deep sadness and disappointment. Rick's family and friends present in the courtroom could clearly feel the overwhelming tension, as this wasn't just an ordinary trial, it was a moment that could determine the rest of his life. As the judge began to read the sentence, a heavy silence blanketed the entire room. Harrison has presented himself to the American public as a guardian of history, someone who values the stories and significance behind antique items. But in reality, he has been involved in the systematic looting and destruction of irreplaceable cultural heritage for personal gain. The judge stated firmly, his voice stern. The court cannot overlook the gravity of such actions. Some believed the punishment was too severe for non-violent offenses, but the judge emphasized that this was not merely about financial misconduct. It was also a punishment for the irreversible damage done to the cultural and historical heritage of humanity as a whole. The image of Rick in handcuffs being escorted out of the courtroom quickly became a media sensation, and within a short time, the photo spread rapidly across social media, sparking an intense public debate. Was this truly the end of all his hopes? Would justice prevail, or was Rick Harrison becoming a casualty of a legal system he once thought he understood and could navigate? Public and media reactions to the sentence ignited a heated controversy. Immediately after the verdict was announced, Rick's legal team filed an appeal, arguing that the sentence was excessively harsh and violated the defendant's rights, especially since all the charges involved nonviolent behavior. They also requested that Rick be released on bail while awaiting the outcome of the appeal. However, in a further blow, the court denied the bail request. On the other hand, a significant portion of the public felt the sentence was justified, arguing that Rick's actions not only damaged his personal reputation, but also caused serious harm to the global cultural heritage. The History Channel, which once witnessed the explosive success of Pawn Stars, acted swiftly following the verdict. They officially severed ties with Rick Harrison, canceled the show, and immediately removed all reruns from the broadcast schedule. Many of Rick's supporters believed he didn't deserve such a harsh fate, claiming it was merely financial missteps made in a business world full of traps. They saw him as someone who had devoted himself to the pawn industry and the world of collectibles, a man with a genuine passion for history. The question now is, what show will take its place on the History Channel? Despite the serious legal troubles, Rick Harrison's impact on reality television and the pawn industry remains undeniable. Before facing these legal issues, he successfully built a vast business empire that extended far beyond the gold and silver pawn shop. He had launched restaurants and bars in Las Vegas, with plans to expand into other cities. In their official statement, the channel expressed deep disappointment in Rick's actions and reaffirmed their commitment to preserving historical artifacts and cultural heritage. While it was a difficult decision, they deemed it necessary to uphold the channel's reputation. Pawn Stars had become a significant part of television history, and its absence leaves a major gap that won't be easily filled. What happened was wrong, and we are committed to being part of the solution, not the problem, Corey said, expressing hope that these efforts would help restore trust from customers and the community. Chumley, who's always seen Rick as both a mentor and a father figure, also spoke out about his conflicted emotions. "I learned so much from Rick," he shared, "but I also have to accept that there are parts of him I never saw, or maybe didn't want to see. Still, the pressing question is, can these ventures continue without Rick's direct leadership?" Currently, the gold and silver pawn shop is being managed by his son, Corey. However, this is no easy task. In an emotional interview a few months after the verdict, Corey opened up about the challenges of keeping the family business going and helping it grow. "We've put strict verification measures in place to confirm the origin of every item we purchase. Is that support enough to help Rick through his darkest days?" The family has also held prayer gatherings outside the shop, where loyal fans have come together to show their solidarity. In times as tough as these, could these gestures really make a meaningful difference? Rick Harrison's legal case is still ongoing, and every development continues to draw public interest. The popularity of Pawn Stars and the attention of viewers only make this story more complicated and mysterious. Could it be that even those closest to Rick don't fully understand every side of who he really is? Even while weathering the storm, the Harrison family continues to feel the overwhelming love and support from fans around the world. "The messages of encouragement from everyone have truly been a lifeline for my dad," Corey said. He reads every single letter and finds strength in knowing that so many people still believe in him. What will be the ultimate outcome? Can Rick make it through this legal storm? For now, one thing is certain. The support of his fans will be a major source of emotional strength for him. If you're a true fan of Pawn Stars, send Rick your positive thoughts and words of encouragement to show appreciation for everything he's contributed to television. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit like, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update.